Hey, thanks for dropping in. So, hands up those of you who love French onion soup. If you put up your hand, I don't blame you, because what's not to love? It's sweet, silky onions in a rich broth covered with an unholy amount of cheese on toast. It's delicious. Still, as a meal, it leaves a little to be desired, so a couple of years ago, I decided to take a shot at bulking it up. With these, beef short ribs, unquestionably, unequivocally one of my favorites. Cooked correctly, you're not going to find a more tender, more delicious, more deeply satisfying cut of meat. A few of these in a pot can transform a warming rainy day soup into a hearty rainy day stew. Of course, because French onion soup is a base, I need to start with these. A big old bag of Spanish onions that I now have to chop up. Where are my tissues? I'm gonna need a minute. Okay, I'm back. The other ingredients I'll need are tomato paste and thyme. And yes, I said tomato paste. It'll add umami and sweetness to the stew, but don't worry, it's not going to make it tomatoey. And I'll also need brandy. Oops, let me turn that around. Other recipes call for white wine as well, but I find that brandy is more than enough by itself. Not shown, mainly because I don't feel like lugging 2 liters of it onto the counter, is beef stock. That'll be the liquid for the sauce. Oh, and if you're wondering where the bread and cheese come in, they don't. I've got something in mind that I think will be just as decadent. But for now, let's get cooking. So I've got a nice big heavy bottom pot, and I'm going to add just a little veg oil. Not butter, because it'll burn. I've got the heat on medium because this pot tends to run a little hot. And I'll lay the ribs in. And I'm going to turn that one guy around. I like to start them bone side down. I'm not really sure why. Actually, I don't think it makes a difference because they're going to get seared anyways. So you do them how you like. This step will take about 5 to 6 minutes total, around a minute per side. These guys are looking good, so they can come out. And in goes batch 2. And out goes batch 2. It's a little hard to tell from this angle, but there's a lot of oil in that pot. Way too much for just cooking onions, so I'm going to take most of it out. My pot is clean. I made sure not to discard the fond or caramelized bits that are stuck to the bottom, because that's flavor. I'll add a fresh splash of veg oil and a good knob of butter. I'll let that start melting. Then it's in with the onions. And a good sprinkle of salt. That'll also help the onions wilt a little faster. I'll let this cook, stirring frequently so it doesn't burn, for between 45 minutes to an hour. It's been about 30 minutes, and I just want to show you where the onions are at. They've reduced significantly, and they've taken on a bit of color. They're also getting quite silky. Still, they're a bit of a ways from being done. I'm guessing another 20 to 25 minutes. My onions are right where I want them, and at this point I have to be very careful because they can go from perfect to burnt really fast. I'll get my tomato paste in there and work it in so that it coats the onions. That'll help protect them from the heat. Notice how bright red that tomato paste is. I want to cook that color right out. So here's my pot again after another 5 minutes. The tomato paste is nice and dark and the onions jammy. I don't want to take this any further, so I'll go in with a brandy. Just free pouring about 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup. And I'll let this go until all the liquid's absorbed. At this point I can add the thyme. I'm throwing whole sprigs in there. No worries, they'll be easy enough to fish out later. If I was cooking for company, I might go through the trouble of stripping the leaves off first, but it's just family, so. I'm also going to grind in some fresh cracked pepper. Then it's in with half my stock. I'm saving the other half to add later as the liquid boils off. As I mentioned earlier, this is beef stock, You can use chicken stock if you want a lighter sauce. Personally, though, I prefer the beef. My sauce is back to a simmer so the ribs can go back in. They're not quite fully submerged, so I'll top them off with a little more stock that I diluted with a bit of water. Then it's on with the lid, and I'll turn the heat down to low. At this point, there's nothing left to do except wait for the ribs to become tender, and stir the pot occasionally so that nothing burns. This will take about 2.5 up to 3 hours. You can, of course, put the pot into a 350-degree oven if you prefer, but my oven needs a good cleaning, so I'm going to leave mine on the stovetop. It's been an hour 45 minutes and the ribs are close, but they're not quite there yet. About 30 minutes before this, I added the remaining beef stock and I also fished out all the little thyme twigs. Their leaves had fallen off, so they were a breeze to pick out. You can see here how much fat has come out of the ribs. A little fat's good, but I don't want a big pool of it, so I'll take a ladle and scoop most of it out. Now the lid can go back on, and this stew can get on its way down a home stretch. All right, we're at about the 2 hour 50-minute mark, and the ribs are nice and tender. And you can see how rich and thick that sauce has become. Another way to tell when your ribs are close to ready is when the bones fall off, or if you're able to slide them out with little to no effort, like this. This is actually good enough to be served right now, but I'm going to keep it simmering with the lid off just a little longer. Not only will this allow for the ribs to become even more tender and the sauce even richer, it'll give me time to finish my presentation idea, which you will see in 3, 2, 1, boom, mashed potatoes. But not just any mashed potatoes, super buttery mashed potatoes with Gruyere cheese melted in. Who needs cheese toast? The only thing left to do is to pour a generous amount of the onion gravy slash sauce into the well, then drop a big tender rib right in the middle, and maybe a little more sauce on top. Come on, how good does that look? So let's do the rundown. Rich, deep, indulgent sauce, check. Melt in your mouth, beefy short ribs, check. An amazing meal to pick up your spirits in the dead of fall and winter, without a doubt. You really should give this a try. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons to show your support. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. And feel free to check out the Instagram to see what else comes out of the kitchen during the week that doesn't make it onto YouTube. Links in the bio. I'll see you next time.